Welcome to the Let's Talk Data podcast series presented by SAP, where we explore game-changing technology and strategies with leading experts with the goal of maximizing the value of data across your organization. If you haven't done so already, please follow or subscribe to our podcast on your favorite channel to stay tuned in.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to our SAP Let's Talk Data podcast. The topic today is a market perspective on data quality and data quality solutions. My name is Corrie Brague, and I'm from the SAP product and solution marketing team, and I'm going to be the host for today's podcast. But let me start by introducing our speaker, Andy Hayler. He's the CEO and co-founder of the Information Difference and also works with the Bloor Research Group. And he is going to give us an insight into the data quality solutions market. So, Andy, thank you for joining today.
Thank you very much for having me.
So can we just, can you share a little bit more about yourself, your background, your experience in data management?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I've had sort of three phases, I guess, to my career. I worked for 7 years for Exxon in various roles, but I started as a DBA, a database administrator, and then did assorted jobs associated with data management, including sort of building some database applications. And then I moved to Shell, and I worked there for 13 years, and I ended up running data management globally for Shell with sort of around 300 staff around the world. And then after that, I kind of went over to the dark side and I set up a software vendor called Kaleido, which was a data warehouse and later a master data management vendor that was some years later was moved to the US and was then acquired. And then for the last dozen years or so, I've been an industry analyst. So set up the Information Difference with my co-founder, and as you mentioned, also do work for Bloor Research, which is another sort of industry analyst firm. So I've sort of been on the end user side, I've been on the vendor side, and more recently I've been on the sort of analyst side. So I've seen, I guess, most different perspectives of data management from each of those different angles.
So then as you kind of shifted towards that analyst role, I'm kind of curious about the general process that you take in terms of performing market research and analysis.
Sure. Well, obviously we talk to both to vendors and end user clients. In terms of the market research, we do actual sort of surveys, as you might think of as market research, but we also talk to vendors about their products, and we advise sort of end user companies mainly on the selection of technologies. So we sort of end up working in different perspectives. And in terms of assessing sort of vendor products, we tend to the firms that I sort of set up is a sort of somewhat sort of niche firm in a way, in that we try to go a bit deeper than some more general purpose analyst firms. We don't try and cover dozens of topics. We really just cover a very small amount, which is for me has been around master data management and including that sort of data quality as a sort of subset, if you like, and data warehousing and data governance, which is associated with those things. When we're looking at vendors, I'm trying to be heavily driven by customer feedback. It's sort of very tempting to spend a lot of time listening to vendors who are very good at coming up with very slick PowerPoint sort of slide decks and lovely demonstrations about how wonderful their products are. But the people who actually have to try and put these things into practice are end user customers in companies. Certainly with the regular research we do, we follow up, do customer satisfaction surveys with customers, and that's actually the thing that drives scoring the most heavily. So I tend to weight the sort of customer feedback scores, to be honest, a lot more heavily than I do the sort of vendor opinions. Because just realistically, customers are the ones who are actually actually using this stuff, so they've got a better idea than anybody else as to what works and what doesn't work.
So then if you're looking and thinking from that customer perspective and in terms of data quality, from a market perspective, what are you seeing in terms of some of the key trends, or what are some of the key needs of customers today when it comes to data quality and data quality management?
Well, I think in broad terms, there's a generic sort of trend, I guess, broadly called digital transformation. And that's, I think, also associated with a very large but very long-term movement of computer applications from traditional on-premise data centers to the cloud. That's clearly something that takes a number of years. But in both of those things, there are significant data quality aspects. So clearly, data is the key, if you like, to the success of most sort of computer applications. And so, being sure at the quality of the data in your core applications is vitally important from an operational viewpoint, just trying to do basic things like understanding, customer profitability or product or channel profitability, and also through compliance issues. If you're in sort of financial services or pharmaceuticals, there's some quite strict compliance legislation depending on which country you're in, and many of these elements rely on a certain level of data quality, and in particular the ability for you to demonstrate that your data is of a certain quality. So I think these kind of broad transitions that are happening in the market are very have a significant data quality component, and as companies try to do these major things, they clearly want to try to automate as much as they can, and so data quality can help with this. I mean, for example, you can, tools these days, or the modern tools anyway, can try to, for example, look at the metadata within applications to try to come up with default or suggested data quality rules, rather than necessarily you having to do everything yourself. That's just one example. So I think there's a number of cases where data quality is quite a sort of important part, really, of these broader digital transformation initiatives.
And where do you see, from that customer perspective, their needs, digital transformation, what do you see as some of the gaps, the needs of the customers and the software solutions that are available?
Yeah, I think it's interesting whenever you see surveys done of sort of very senior management, the kind of surveys that management consulting firms do sort of every year of CEOs. What is quite intriguing is actually the level to which data quality is regarded as important. But what is fascinating is the degree to which CEOs don't necessarily have tremendous faith in the quality of the data within their organization. So you often, different surveys come up with different things, but you'll see, often as many as a third of CEOs sort of just, expressing some degree of disquiet about the reliability of the data within an organization. And I think there's many reasons for this. It can be partly a matter of data being fragmented across different systems. Realistically, people have got lots of different applications, not just ERP. And if they have got ERP, they've got perhaps many different instances of ERP. But within that, you've also got to consider, not just the accuracy of data, but you've got to consider its timeliness, its completeness, its consistency, and so on. So there are a lot of issues that get sort of driven out through when people try to put in new systems or new reporting systems or some new initiative. They discover that often the quality of the data underlying that they were hoping for isn't really the case. And certainly I know in some work that we did as a piece of market research just a few years ago, that we found that we asked I think it was over 100 companies about their experiences with implementing major data management projects, and I think in all the average was that they'd allowed something like 10% of their budget for data quality within these broader data management projects. But in practice, when they actually did the project, they were often spending 20 to 30% of the entire project fixing data quality problems. So on average, the data quality issues were taking up 2 to 3 times the expected amount of effort. And so we consistently find this, whichever industry it is. It doesn't sort of matter whether it's financial services or whether it's manufacturing or pharma, there is a sort of ongoing sort of generic issue with data quality, some of which comes back to human nature, because people aren't necessarily always rewarded for putting doing a bang up job with their data quality. They're often measured on other things, and you need to put the processes in place really to ensure that there is a sense of sort of ownership of data quality. I mean, certainly I think this generic sort of terminology of sort of data governance, which is really the process side of data quality and other aspects of data management, I think is extremely important. Too many organizations in the past tended to regard data quality as a kind of a technology problem, and that was the problem of the IT department, and that really isn't going to work in this day and age. Business really need to take ownership of their data, and to be actually held accountable for the quality of data and its consistency and timeliness and so on. They can't just sort of outsource that to a bunch of folks in the IT department. So we tend to talk quite a lot about sort of data governance issues, as well as the more obvious things of technology itself. So I know obviously with SAP have a number of offerings in this area, but I mean these days it's sort of data intelligence cloud, but before that there were some other technologies, SAP Information Steward and data services. And in fact, question to you really is to how you see those sort of transitions occurring.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. We do have a very large customer base on SAP Information Steward and data services, but we have built integrations to share data quality rules, to share data quality ETL data flows, metadata between those products and SAP Data Intelligence Cloud. So allowing customers to kind of move to the cloud at their own speed when it comes to data management. I want to ask you one more question, Andy, and this is relative to, the underestimation of data quality when it comes to digital transformation. What advice would you give to data leaders to help right-size that effort or create a business case for it to sell it to the company? Any thoughts?
Sure. Well, I think there's two or three things there. I mean, I certainly would go back to what I said earlier about, I think, data governance being very important. This is not an IT department's problem. I think that's the first kind of thing. In terms of making a business case for data quality, I think that actually shouldn't be so very difficult. And one example, sort of a bit of advice that I've often given is to, if you've got a business process model of your organization, which many, certainly larger organizations will have, so you may have a process like sell to customer, for example. It should be possible to look through the elements of that business process and look at the outputs and consider what proportion of business transactions at the moment are failing due to data quality issues. There may be all kinds of, depending on the process, there may be things like returns if it's a physical product that's going off to stores and some are being sent back. It could be deliveries going to the wrong address because of a faulty name and address. There'll be different things for different processes, but it should be possible to look at the cost of each of these sort of missteps. And if you have decent information on the proportion of, for example, queried invoices or returns that are made back to the manufacturer, then these have obviously got a cost, and if a proportion of that is to do with data quality, and you can improve that by whatever 50% or 80%, whatever estimate you can come up with, you should be able to put that into fairly hard dollar value terms. And once you've got that, then you can start to see if it's going to costing us whatever $2 million a year or something, whatever the number is, in terms of these issues, if we can, improve it by 50%, we can afford to spend $1 million on a data quality initiative. So I think that's the type of thing. Just look at sort of specific business processes and look at the problems today. Just look at where the pain is and try to pick the things that are causing the most pain as well. Don't pick the easy, things that are sort of, minor inconveniences. Pick the things that are actually costing you money. And what I will say is, having worked in data management now for disturbing amount of time, I think for 39 years now, and on a whole range of different projects for different companies, what I can absolutely tell you is that every single project I've ever worked on, the data quality is worse than the expectation. So there is not one project I can ever remember where I've worked on where the data quality was much better than we thought it was going to be. Yeah, it's always worse, and therefore you need to be realistic about the amount of effort you assign to that. As I said in this survey we did, you basically figure out what you think it's going to cost you to do data quality, and then either double or triple that, and that will, on average, that literally will be a more realistic estimate. And clearly, tools, the whole pile of tools like SAP Data Intelligence, but obviously others that can, really help you with that. A lot of these things can be automated. There's a lot of very clever algorithms that can help you, match candidate, duplicate record solutions and do merge matching. They can do profiling, they can do enrichment. So a lot of these things can be speeded up, with a good quality modern data quality tool, particularly if it's sort of cloud native, which is the way the world is going now. If you've got something that's sort of cloud-based solution that's modern, that's got lots of good functionality, then those types of tools can definitely assist you in that kind of that process and speed things up for you. So I think sort of I would focus on, to summarize, data governance, put those things in place, double your estimates, and use a good modern data quality tool. That would be my summary.
And I just want to add to this is the idea of the measurement, right? The improvement, to really establish the KPIs up front so that you can track then and show to your leadership that you are making progress and improvement, and show the value of your data management or data quality initiatives to keep that funding for those improvements and solutions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's an ongoing, data quality shouldn't be a one-off project where you suddenly think you've fixed it all. It's not really like that. It's a constant battle against entropy. So the only way you're going to do that is to have regular monitoring processes where you are measuring the quality of your data, ideally also measuring the cost that the data quality errors are actually causing you, and then by doing those two things, you have you're doing a good job of maintaining a good handle on where your data quality is heading in terms of direction. But as an aside, if you're measuring the cost of the issues, then you're also self-justifying the actual cost of the project. So you don't have to go back and do another big exercise in 2 or 3 years' time when the next crisis happens.
So with that, I think we'll wrap up. I want to thank everyone for listening to our SAP Let's Talk Data podcast, discussing a market perspective on data quality. And I want to encourage everyone listening to take a look at the additional resources that are available within the description of the podcast. This will give you also links to information about SAP Data Intelligence Cloud, which has some great capabilities for data quality and data governance to get an understanding of the quality of your data, but also monitor that on an ongoing basis. And yeah, stay tuned for new episodes, subscribe to the Let's Talk Data series, and get caught up on the ones that you have missed. So thanks again, everyone, and be well.
We hope you enjoyed the podcast. Check out the show notes for additional links to information. And please subscribe or follow to join us on the next episode of Let's Talk Data presented by SAP.